I feel like it felt exactly how you would imagine it. Like it popped and I was like, oh, it's gone immediately. And I tried to run it off and I recognized like I couldn't sprint. And so I just sat down, and I think it's the first time that I have ever, besides like something really traumatic happening, have sat down and been like, you know what, I need a sub. And got an MRI and they were like, it's not good. It doesn't look good.
Don't call it a comeback.
Lynn Williams is back.
Right you are, Shazier. She had to take 10 months off from the NWSL and the USWNT from a hamstring injury last year, but her return has her stronger than ever.
Plus, the NBA bubble is making a comeback, and what does Bronny James mean to USC basketball? From Wondery, I'm Ryan Shazier.
Don't you ever say that the bubble is coming back. I don't want ever to have to deal with that again. Meantime, I'm Dave Damashek.
And this is Don't Call It a Comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.
Hey, Shek, let's get into this Lynn Williams comeback.
As you wish, Shazier. The story starts back on March 18th, 2022, during the opening match of the NWSL Challenge Cup. On the field with the Kansas City Current, one moment could have changed Lynn's entire career.
On the other end, we saw Lynn Williams walking a bit gingerly, trying to stretch something out, now going to ground on her own volition as the trainer comes out for a look.
As Williams sprinted to block the outside back from playing the ball down the line, she felt a pop and began to slowly fall down onto the field.
And the engine of the attack now gingerly walking off. Lynn Williams, the active leader in goals all time in the NWSL, second all time in assists. So whether she is giving or receiving, instrumental in the attack of any team she's on.
Now that pop was Williams' hamstring tearing completely off the bone, leaving her future career in the NWSL and the U.S. national team up in the air. And then in the following 10 months, Lynn had to go through an intense rehab and training schedule, not knowing if she'd be able to recover in time to play with the USWNT for training camp. Shazier, what would you tell an athlete who's got a long road of recovery ahead of them?
You just have to be patient and have a positive mindset, because right now you're really negative about missing out and understand that you're not going to be able to play. But you just have to be positive, because you understand the better you think about recovering, the more likely you are to.
On January 23rd, over 300 days after her injury, Williams' hard work did indeed pay off. Within her first 7 minutes back with the U.S. women's national team, Lynn Williams scored.
And that's the header in there for goal number 4.
And you see the joy on the faces of those players for Lynn Williams and what she's had to do to fight back onto this national team.
For more on her comeback to the USWNT and her recent mega trade to Gotham FC, we've got the woman of the hour here with us. Lynn Williams, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
How you doing, Lynn?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I want to start off like where it all started. So can you take us back to 2022 in the Challenge Cup when you first tore your hamstring? Like, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't recommend if you're gonna run around, I recommend keeping the hamstring tendons on the bone. Like, that's probably key. But I have had high hamstring issues for a while. And leading up into that game, I realized that something was off, especially at halftime. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong. I can feel like a deep pain, kind of a burning sensation. But I like to think I'm a very tough person. So I was like, I just have to get through it. It's fine. We'll figure it out after the game. And I went on one too many sprints, I guess, tried to block the ball down the line. And I immediately knew. I felt a pop. Like, imagine the feeling. I feel like it felt exactly how you would imagine it. Like, it popped and I was like, oh, it's gone immediately. And I tried to run it off and I recognized like I couldn't sprint. And so I just sat down, and I think it's the first time that I have ever, besides like something really traumatic happening, have sat down and been like, you know what, I need a sub. And got an MRI and they were like, it's not good. It doesn't look good. And from that moment, I don't know if you guys have ever had injuries. I'm assuming, I know you have actually.
Yeah.
I do know that. I do know that. But it's one of those things where, in the moment, like I knew it was bad, but I was hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And so when you get the news from the doctor, thank goodness I had my Snacks co-host Sam with me in the room. And when I got the news, I started crying just because I've had so many injuries, and I was like, no, not again. And I knew that this was going to be a long one. And then obviously I knew the World Cup was coming up and all the things. And I was like, crap, it's going to be a push to get back. And all those emotions are going through your head all at the same time. But then once I got out of that office and I called my parents and I called my boyfriend, and I was like, all right, here we go. I've already been on this journey before. I can do it again.
It's so crazy because I actually, I had a grade 3, so I didn't tear it all the way off the bone, but I had a grade 3 hamstring, and through my whole career, I've had hamstring issues as well. So like my teammates always thought I was kind of not faking, but every single time we'll have training camp, I would pull my hamstring. Every single time I'll pull it or tear it. Every single time. So it's like, so coach would be like, yo, like today we're not even having Ryan do these drills because we already know what's going to happen. But how did you cope with missing your sport for 10 months?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, I have been through injuries before. I feel like, so in 2016, I had knee surgery to fix a cartilage damage. In 2014, in college, I shattered my elbow and had hip surgery at the same time. So I was out for a while then. It's interesting.
Elbow and hip at the same time? That's something.
It was pretty terrible. That was when I actually contemplating if this was like for me, because I was like, I'm putting my body through so much. What's going on? But I feel like every single time, and that's what I was going to say. It's interesting that I'm on this podcast and knowing, Ryan, your story. Growing up, my uncle, Curtis Williams, played for the University of Washington and ended up going into a tackle and head-to-head collision and ended up severing his spinal cord at C1
Really?
C2. So he was paralyzed from the neck down and lived with me and my family when I was 8 and 9, ended up passing away when I was 9. And so I think that every time I get injured, I go back to that and say, I've seen somebody go from playing the sport they love and being like this big, huge man to basically life, like just taken away of the way we know life taken away. And I think that when I'm injured, I'm like, yeah, that sucked. Like my hamstring sucked and I love playing soccer, but I still have the ability to walk. I still have the ability I'll eventually be able to run. I'll eventually get back. I don't know if I'm going to be the same player, but I'll be some kind of player. And I think it just like puts things into perspective, as I've gotten older and as I've gone through so many injuries. So I think that like definitely has helped through the ups and downs and all the emotions of like, you have a good day of rehab and then you have a bad day and you have a good day. So I always go back to those moments of like, okay, Lynn, like let's have some perspective. Like you're fine.
That's an amazing perspective that you have. It's distinct, I imagine, for most high-end athletes in the moment that they hurt their knee, that it's not probably life-altering from a human standpoint, but may impact your career. Mm-hmm. So you kind of touch on it there. I mean, how, you kind of just described them already there, but it always occurs to me when I watch people getting onto the cart with a bad knee injury and you can tell there's going to be a long rehab.
Yeah.
Is that super depressing? Is that the chief emotion that, oh my God, this next year is going to suck? If I want to do this again, this is going to be, and I always think about the pivot from, you're doing it in front of thousands of people, so they cheer for you as you're leaving the field, but then you go into isolation. If you want to get back, you have to rehab, and it's by yourself pretty much every day for the next year. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that is the part that's not talked about as much, is that when you're a part of a team, when you're rehabbing, you're not really a part of the team. Like they're doing their own thing and you're off in the corner just staring out the window being like, crap, I really want to be out there. Yeah. But I have to go do this stupid K-box and learn how to walk normal again and lift weights that used to be easy and now really, really hard. And then push through some pain that they keep telling you like that pain's normal. And you're like, I don't feel like this is normal. So you have all the things. And Yeah, definitely. I think that for when you first have the injury, it's grieving the loss or the possibility of whatever was about to happen. So
it's almost like I don't mean to be glib, but I always think of like, have you ever had your car break down in the middle of the day and you're like, well, this is not at all what I planned for the short-term future. Now I have to deal with this. It's got to be that, but times, a million worse.
For me, at least, I like to do it in stages so you immediately are like, crap, like my whole season is over, or half a season, or whatever your projected timeline is. And then I try to take it in stages as I'm like, okay, first step is the surgery. Like, I just need to get to the surgery. And once that surgery's happened, I'm like, okay, I need to get through the first couple bits of like, if you're bedridden or like if you can't walk, I'm just like, okay, let me take that stage and then go into the other stage. But I work with a sports psychologist, and I think that helps a lot too. I think there's some like stat that says when you're on the road to recovery, like 70% of people either hit a plateau or you take a dip or something like that. I don't know if she told me that. And I think that if you can mentally prepare yourself that that's going to happen, because when you're coming back, you're like, I'm just going to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do this. And the second you hit something, you're like, I've had a week of bad, you start to spiral sometimes because you've had a bad week, but then you're also not with your team, and you're also not being able to do the things that you love, and you're usually in a market that's away from your family. And so you start to be like, what am I doing? And so I just think you have to, one, surround yourself with people who are willing to help you and know what you're going through. And then two, like me, I went to a sports psych and was like, I need to mentally prepare myself to go through this tough time.
I think a lot of people don't really understand how important that is. So what's crazy is when I was going through my injury, I didn't speak to anybody. I actually had a sports psychologist the whole time I was in college, but I didn't have one when I went through my injury. Tuesday was the first time that I spoke to somebody in the 6 years since I've been hurt.
No way.
Yeah. So
and how'd it go?
It went great. It's actually awesome because, it was just like kind of talking about like going through the next steps. And it wasn't a sports psychologist, it was just a regular psychologist, but just, dealing with all the hurt that I had kind of built up for 6 years. And I'm still doing well. And, but it's just trying to find yourself. And like you said, as a player, you try to find yourself and trying to get back to your sport. And to me, it's just incredible. And I could definitely tell that you're an organized person because the way you broke it down, and obviously sports help you break things down like that. But the way you broke it down and Lynn, I just want to say, like, what you did, it was incredible because, like you said before when you was injured, you was like, I don't know if I'll be the same player again. And then after 10 months, you come back to the U.S. national team, and then in 7 minutes, not 40 minutes, in 7 minutes, you score your first goal. How did that feel?
I mean, incredible. I think I turned to Lindsay Horan and I was like, I don't think I completed a pass until the goal. Like, but she goes, it's fine. And I think that it honestly, like, it's like such a good feeling because you're like, I've worked so hard for this. Like, I have been grinding. Like, it's hard work. There's days where, normally you're up before everybody because you got to get your training in because when everybody starts coming in, they're focused. So you get up early, you go in to do your work, and then you're the last one there because you have to finish last. So your day is so long and you're not with the team ever. So you're just like, when is this ever going to end? And so to be able to have my first game back with the national team, I thought my first game back would be with a club team and like really ease my way in. But it was just kind of like thrown into the fire. And so to be able to score there and like make an impact, I was just really proud of myself and also just like grateful for all the people who have helped me along those 10 months because it was tough. My poor boyfriend, bless him, because I was so mean sometimes. Yeah. I was like, I got to do this. And he's like, you're crazy.
Are you self-aware? Are you aware of enough? Because so often when people reach the peak of the mountain, winning a title or whatever, like, what's it feel like? It hasn't set in yet for me. This is something like a movie that you're out for a year, then you come back in and you immediately score a goal. Are you lucid in the moment? Like, this is crazy. They might make a movie out of me, and this is the final scene.
No, you're definitely aware in the moment. I was like, holy shit, like I just scored a goal. And but then I'm like, okay, I got to keep playing and I got to keep growing. I think that the beauty and also like, I guess the hindrance of athletes is we always want to grow. So we're never comfortable. And so even in those moments, like you have to celebrate them, but then the past is the past. Like you got to move on. And I'm like, there's still the rest of the game to be played. I still didn't really play that great. I just happened to score. So I think in the moment I smiled and I was like, that's awesome. Afterwards I was texting all my family, obviously. And then I quickly was like, well, we have another game to play and I need to make sure I'm starting to get back to Lynn more. Cause you get cleared and you start playing, but you're not you yet.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt. I was like, this is amazing. This is incredible, but I'm not me.
I'm sorry to go back. I want to we're into the celebration, coming through clean on the other side part of the conversation, but I have to go back there with what Shazier touched on. And I just mentioned you're the star of a movie potentially here. What do you do for 10 months? Is it all of a sudden like, hey, the glass half full is I'm finally going to get caught up on all those Netflix shows I haven't been watching? Is that what you do to feel like, because you're an active person, so probably downtime ain't for you necessarily as much as it is for a schnook like me. Is that what your life turns into, is a lot more TV?
You have no idea how much horizontal laying I do. Like I am playing and then I am laying down. Like those are my two personalities. Okay. So I think that when I was injured, I was more like, there was a period of time when you can't run, you can't work out, you can't bike, you can't do anything. And I was like, I just need to sweat, I think. And so my sports psych was like, why don't you go in a sauna and just sweat? So I feel like I spent a lot of time trying to find things that made me feel like I could be a little bit active. Because like, I watched a lot of shows, but I watch a lot of shows anyways. So I was like, what are things I can do to make myself feel either a part of the team or like a little bit normal? And a lot of that was just like, okay, let me stretch my other leg and let me go in the sauna and get outside. I think just like seeing the sun and not, cocooning myself and isolating myself even more than I already was really key. And then unfortunately, my friend Sam Mewis, like I said, who does the podcast with me, she was also going through a knee injury at the same time. So I think that we were able to really help each other through that. I don't want either of us to have to go through an injury, but I was really grateful that we were doing it at the same time.
Are you thinking though, are you able to, like as a fan, when my team loses, I become resentful of the sport and I can't watch it for a little while? If my team goes out in the playoffs prematurely, I like, well, now I can't watch for another week or two out of spite. Are you able to watch your teammates and enjoy what they're doing, or is it too tough to watch with you not in the mix?
No, I watch. I think that, well, one, on my club team, I went to all the games and you get to see things from up top and a different perspective, which was actually kind of nice because then I could go into trainings, and when I was a little bit more active and able to be out there, I could say, look at this and look at blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I was like another tactical analysis. With the US team, I think it gets a little bit harder just because with your club team, I feel like you're more stable and you're like, I know a spot's going to be back and I'm going to come back and whatever. With the US team, there's always somebody chomping at the bit to come in. So you never know if in the time that you're out, somebody has risen and that there's no need for you anymore. So I definitely was able to watch. It was more of like, okay, what are they doing? What is style of play are they doing? Like trying to like analyze. But I think with me knowing that I was going to be fine, after a while, I realized like, okay, I'm going to be fine. It was more of now I need to start studying the game again and start figuring out where can I implement myself. And, like I said, in the league, like in the NWSL, started studying defenders. And so I'm like, well, this defender has this tendency and this defender has this tendency. So when I come back, hopefully I can exploit that. So it was like after a while, it was more of like, I'm studying.
New and improved.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
That's what a dominant player does. Somebody that's one of the greatest at what they do. once they find out that they're going to be better, they found, ways to do better their opponents, So I want to talk about something. So which is really crazy to me. I know you was talking about your club team and like you feel more stable. So right after that game, you get some super unexpected news and probably, and people don't understand how crazy that day was at the NWSL draft, and you got traded. So like, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you found out?
Yeah, it was crazy. So I was in New Zealand, first national team camp back. So I already have those high emotions of, all right, I'm back. I got to be right in this. And with the national team and sports, like, it's not just playing. It's like getting your mind prepared and experienced again with like sitting in meetings. Like you have to train your mind to like be awake at all times again.
Yeah.
And so I think I was like, whoa, I'm like in shock all the time. Cause I'm like, I have to be focused in this meeting and I have to be focused in this meeting. And then I have to go be focused in training. And it's just like a lot. And so when the draft happened, it wasn't even on my radar. I was like, I forgot it was draft day. I'm in New Zealand. I'm on the training table. And I get a text from my agent and he was like, hey, do you have time to talk? And my stupid self was like, oh my gosh, he got me a deal. Like, I got to call him back. So I text him, I'm like, hey, not right now. I'm getting treatment. Like I can call you in an hour. And he goes, it's time sensitive. So it's like 9:50 by this point. I call him back and I say, hey, we have a team meeting in 10 minutes, but what's going on? Like I said, thinking there's a deal on the table.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hate to do this to you, but there's a trade on the table for you to go to Gotham. But at the end of the day, you have veto power. And my first initial response was like, no, I'm not going. Like, absolutely not. It's a World Cup year. I just came back from this injury. I've already made connections in Kansas City. All the things are running through my head. So I say, no, like, I'm not going. And then I say, well, who's the coach? Like, what's the deal? And they tell me like the second round pick, this is the coach. And I go, okay, well, I can't talk right now. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. I can call you back at 11. And he says, well, we have to get this done before the draft happens, which would have been at 12. So I go into the meeting being like, oh my God, like trying to focus on this meeting, but I just got this news about my life might be uprooted from where I know. And so the meeting happens. I call him back at 11 and I'm like, what's going on? So he runs down more in detail what's happening. I talk to the coach at Gotham. I talk to the GM at Gotham. I call Vlatko, the national team coach, being like, what should I do? Like, it's a World Cup year. Like, what do I go reestablish myself somewhere else again? Or do I stick with what I know? But then I had heard it was Kansas City that was trying to trade me and Gotham wanted me. So I was like, well, what if I say no to this trade? And then I get stuck in a position where they don't really want me and I don't play. So that doesn't sound really fun. I talked to my boyfriend, like I said, and he's like, look, you want to be in a place that somebody wants you. You don't want to be somewhere where that you're not wanted. And that's the ultimate decision why I said, okay, like, let's do this. So at 11:57, I said, let's do it. Like, fine, I'm going to go to Gotham. And by 12 o'clock, I was traded. And I put my phone down at 12:30. I think we had to leave for training. So I put my phone down, got back to my phone, and I had like million messages. And Kelly O'Hara had been, she FaceTimed me immediately, like right after I got off the phone saying like, let's do it. I was in shock. Everybody's like, did you know on the team? I'm like, no, I don't know what's going on. And so from that moment, I was like, my life is kind of turned upside down because I have to go back. All my stuff is in Kansas City. I have to go get that, but I'm in New Zealand. I have to focus on these games first. So I kind of had to compartmentalize and say, okay, this is what's going to happen in the very near future. But right now I have to focus on these 2 games against New Zealand. And luckily for me, I was like able to do that and perform well. But yeah, it was a whirlwind of a time.
Well, and talking about coming through clean on the other side. So then you go and you play for Gotham FC and, well, I don't spoiler alert for anybody. As a matter of fact, let's take a listen to what happened. You have your elbow taped in a splint. You're playing against Angel City, and here's what happens.
Williams with a strike, and what a fabulous goal by Lynn Williams. and Gotham have turned this game on its head.
I broke my elbow. I went up for a header and kind of got tabletopped in the first 5 minutes of game. And I put my arm down to brace myself. And I knew immediately, I go, oh, my elbow's broken. And my next thought was, not again. Like, this is the first game back. Like, this isn't happening. And so as the half goes on more, I'm like, I can't bend my elbow. But if somebody can bend it for me, I can play. Like, I'm determined to play these games. And again, it's a World Cup year. I'm playing these games. So yeah, tape the elbow up and just get back out there. And luckily enough, was able to get a goal there and win on the road in a very rowdy crowd. But yeah, what a wild time.
This is some story you have. Are you, as you go through it here over these last 20 minutes, are you like, wow, that's pretty good stuff from that person who did all that? That's how you should feel. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that, I have a really high pain tolerance is what I'm learning. It's not that I'm learning, I've known this, and it's a blessing and a curse because I think that I'm able to play through a lot of pain, but it's a curse because I feel it when I'm not playing. I'm like, I keep saying I'm going to be turning 30 in a month, and every day I'm like, I'm taking Epsom salt bath and I'm doing this recovery and blah, blah, blah. And I keep joking. I'm like, is this just my life now? Am I getting old? But I think it's because I keep playing through so many injuries, like the hamstring and the elbow and the other hip thing. And so it's a blessing and a curse.
Hey man, Lynn, my son was talking about playing soccer, but you keep talking all these injuries. I might have to keep him in baseball or something.
No, soccer's so fun, and I think I'm just like a freak accident person. I don't really know. Just listen to your bodies, kids. Don't do what I'm doing. Do as I say, not as I do.
So your wonderful soccer league said that they're announcing that they're expanding the team to the Bay Area, and they're looking for 2 other markets. So what cities do you think should get some new teams?
Oh, that is a good question. Okay, so we're going to Bay and Utah. I think that Atlanta would be a good one. And I think that, like Nashville probably. Atlanta and Nashville. We went to Cincinnati. I'm going to throw in Cincinnati too. We went there. Just kidding. I'm not going to throw it in. We did play there with the national team, and it was rowdy. And then Austin. Austin might be a good place too to have a team. We were just there as well, and the facilities with Austin FC are incredible. So
whatever cities have the best food, right? Whichever ones have the best food to go out to dinner before the game, right?
Yeah, whatever ones have the best fans. That's what I'm going to say, and the best investment, but also food we can import.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? When you're picking favorites, though, last thing is you're known as Auntie with your teammates on the USWNT because you spend so much time with the kids of Crystal Dunn, Adriana Franch, and Alex Morgan. Who's the best kid? And who's your least favorite of the kids?
Oh, I'm not answering that question. Absolutely not. I will say that Marcel is the smiliest kid.
Okay.
He smiles nonstop. But don't try to trap me.
That means that's her favorite.
No, that's not true. Do not try to trap me.
Hey, it's an awesome story. We really appreciate the time, and congratulations on the comeback to this point, and we're excited to see the next chapter coming up.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks one more time to Lynn for joining us today. Tune in to Gotham FC games all season to see Lynn in action. And if that's not enough for you, check out her podcast, Snacks, for more. Now, which Disney movie has the greatest soundtrack? Shazier and I cast our votes. Up next. Time for some other comeback stories in the news we need to give a look at this week. This is the Checkdown. Hey, Shazier, you may have noticed the NBA Conference Final matchups are set, ready to roll, and they're the exact same matchups we had in the bubble back in 2020. Should the Lakers bubble ring count the same as a regular championship?
See, I'll let her talk to you about this because to me, I definitely feel that it deserves the credit as any other championship, because a lot of people say, hey, some players stepped up in that moment where others didn't. Like if you bring in like TJ Warren, but they didn't win the championship. The team that won the championship was the Los Angeles Lakers, and it was LeBron and it was AD in their squad with Rondo, and they had a solid squad. And if they were playing in the regular season, I could still see them winning the championship. I understood they had a little bit more time to rest because if it was the regular timing, some of the guys would not have been there. But I still think it matters. It still counts because at the end of the day, all of them are professionals. They're all getting paid. They're all in the same place. They all have the same, they all have to deal with the same variables. So to me, I feel like they definitely deserve that championship. And I hate when people try to pull it away from them.
Hey, listen, everything that you just said is absolutely true, but I don't think this is an intellectual based decision. I think it just speak from the heart, Shazier. You know that it doesn't feel the same. It's a different thing. It's almost like a strike season. It doesn't count for as much in the record books. Yes. When you look back on LeBron's career, does that ring count just as much? Of course it does. But deep down, that bubble era, we leaned on it. We duped ourselves into believing, yeah, this counts just as much. But in hindsight, as well as I do, it doesn't feel quite the same and quite as important or valuable or otherwise, right?
No, that's just you. To me, if it matters, just a championship is a championship. And I hate when people try to discredit when people win championships. They didn't have any control of it. And the league decided, hey, this is what we're going to do to still have a champion. We're going to still have a playoff. We're going to have a play-in. So, everybody didn't get to play as many games to allow more teams to come in and try to win a championship. They had a play-in. They did everything they needed to do. The play-in is still part of the game now. So that Laker team will probably beat some championship teams that were probably in the past before. So I don't see why people try to knock that championship just because they were all in Orlando in the bubble.
I hear your noise. I think there were some percentage of guys that just didn't want to be there and they checked out physically. If not physically, then at least emotionally and otherwise.
You're not checking out in the playoffs. People say that, but the people that really checked out, most of them they didn't have a legit chance to win the championship.
Okay. Like I say, agree to disagree. Meantime, let's talk about the playoffs going right now. Continue to do that. We're through game one in the East, but let's get in the rearview mirror just a little bit, shall we? He struggled the first 6 games of the series, but then Jason Tatum closed out the Sixers. He turned it on, scoring 51 in that decisive game 7. How impressive was Tatum's comeback?
So I know that we're one game out, from that moment that Jason Tatum had when he was playing against the 76ers. But to me, I just don't think that Jason Tatum gets the credit that he deserves on a regular basis. Obviously, people say he's a top 5 player. He's one of the best players in the league. But the other top 5 players, they always say, oh, this guy's the best player in the league. This guy's the best player in the league. But nobody ever says that about Jason Tatum, especially with how young he is and how dominant he has been with his age. So for him to, have a game of that series when he started off, 1 for 7. Then the next game he started off 1 for 9. Then the next game he started off 1 for 10, and then dropped 17 in the 4th. And then now he comes back and have the greatest. If when it comes to points wise, have the greatest points game in a game 7 history. To me, I just think what Jason Tatum does on a regular basis is great, and it's greatness before our eyes. But we're so used to seeing guys like LeBron. We're so used to talking about guys that like Steph Curry's and B's and Jokic's that a guy like Jason Tatum sometimes gets swept under the rug. And I think that this season he's going to stamp his footprint in the league to show, hey, I am just as good or better than everybody else in this league in this moment. And I think that game 7, he showed it.
Everybody in the joint knew that Jason Tatum had to carry the day, but the added adversity of not getting it done in earlier games makes it extra impressive that he was able to shake that off and rise up in the big spot when his team needed him the most against the arch rival Sixers. But if you want to, Shazier, there's no rule. There's no law that says if you want to say Jason Tatum is the best player in the game, go ahead.
he would have got my MVP vote. Obviously, when you go off of points, when you go off of assists and rebounds and all that, Jokic and Embiid, they are the clear favorites. But the reason I like the Jason Tatum is because the difference between Jason Tatum team and those other two teams is that they very much lean heavily on those two guys. And that's an MVP. But Jason Tatum team is more well-rounded. So you're not going to get as many 50-point games as Jason Tatum just played this last game as you would get from an Embiid or a Jokic. He's been in, I think this is his third conference finals. And, to me, he's a multiple all-proer and only 25 years old. So it just shows you this is a player that's going to be here for a long time. And I think that last game that he had is going to show people, hey, you're going to have to start saying his name in the conversation a lot more than leaving him out.
We'll see what the next fortnight to a month does. That will solve a lot of this and settle a lot of the hash. I'd love to make a case for Giannis, but since he's been walking on a beach somewhere in all likelihood for the last 3 weeks, it doesn't seem like the appropriate time to make my case for him being the most dominant force in the NBA. All right, Shazier, the wait is over. Bronny James is committed to playing college basketball at USC. What program, Shazier, will make a comeback first? Trojan basketball or Trojan football? And I'm going to put an asterisk. I think you could say USC football was pretty good last year, but all the way back.
Man, so with Bronny James going to USC, I think that can definitely help the program. They also have a few other good recruits there as well. And with that being said, I think that they can make a solid run in March Madness, but it's really hard for me to say that they'll be back before USC football will be back. And the reason for that is because Trojan football, they're right on the cusp. If you think about it, if they would have won one game last year in the Pac-12 championship, they would have been in the Final Four. So that's basically saying, hey, we arrived. We are back. And so they lost that game, and I think that really hurt them. But I think they're one game away. They have Caleb Williams, who just won the Heisman, and then they have Lincoln Riley, who's one of the best coaches in college football. I would say 70% of the people across the country that watch college basketball probably don't even know the name of USC's basketball coach. So with that being said, I think Trojans football will have a better chance of winning a championship before basketball, because with basketball, you can have a walk-on guy from Indiana State have a big-time game in a tournament, and boom, you're out of the tournament. With college football, it's rare a very large underdog beats a big-time team.
Yeah, USC has been pretty good in the hoops department, but as you say, they could win the Pac-12, and it's not really an indication, if you look at the last 20 years or so, that spells success for them come March. College football, you can be cynical and say they better get it done with Caleb Williams this year, or who knows what happens. Spoiler alert, Lincoln Riley has shown that he can coach up any high-end QB talent in that student-athlete window. And Caleb Williams might get it done this year. I think there's a pretty good chance, and a relatively soft Pac-12. But even if he doesn't, the future is brighter with Lincoln Riley in place there and bringing along a presumably Heisman-eligible kid in 2024, 25, and 26, because that's been his track record over the last decade.
So I have two statements I want to say. So that 70%, what I said, that's not an accurate stat, so I don't need anybody going back and looking up those stats. And then, as an unbiased opinion, I just don't think that USC is going to win the national championship this year. Very unbiased. I think somebody like Ohio State or Georgia has a better chance.
Ohio State.
But that's unbiased. No.
You're an objective journalist, I think. Right?
No.
Oh, no, you're not. Meantime, let's focus on this. The Little Mermaid is making a comeback. The live action version is hitting theaters, or it did hit theaters last week. Shazier, which Disney musical has the greatest soundtrack?
So I had actually thought about this a little bit. I remember at first I was saying Moana is very close. But to me, I'm going to have to go with Lion King.
Really?
Lion King has the best soundtrack, and when you just kind of think about all the music, all the songs that they
Hakuna
have on there,
Matata.
and then you have the Circle of Life. You have a lot of amazing songs
The
on there.
Circle of Life.
But I want to go back and ask you, because I think yesterday that you told me that the best soundtrack that you thought was Frozen.
No. Don't put that on me. I didn't say Frozen. It is the highest profile one, and a lot of people will give it the awards and all of that. Moana is great with You're Welcome, and I can't think of. Well, listen, Moana has a great soundtrack, is the bottom line. The most underrated is Tangled, and that lines up neatly with the Rapunzel movie being the most underrated of all the Disney princess movies overall. Belle is great. Problematic, though, I feel. Falling in love with a beast. I mean, like, she's got Stockholm syndrome. He's a mean beast, too. It'd be one thing if he was a beast with a heart of gold, but he's pretty nasty. What's Belle's self-esteem issues? Falling for that thing. So I have to set her aside. I'm going to go with Rapunzel as a little bit of an upset hipster pick for my favorite Disney musical, princess musical.
What happened to Bruno? Do you know what movie that's from?
We don't talk about Bruno. Of course I know. I mean, I know them all, Shazier. I've got 4 kids, 2 of which are little girls. I've seen every animated movie in the 21st century. I literally think I've missed one.
Because Encanto is a great one as well.
Yes, Encanto is great. There really haven't been many stinkers. I wasn't a huge fan of Frozen Part 2. I'll go on the record with that. But for the most part, the product's pretty strong, right?
I agree.
You know what would be nice? Let's, maybe we could spin off into a new series where Shazier and Damashek sing duets of all the Disney films. What about that? Think about that. I want you to think about that. Take the week and do that, okay?
I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, I want you to think about it a little bit before you give a final answer, because for now, that's it for Don't Call It a Comeback.
So I read a book, and in the book it says it takes people about 5 to 10 seconds to really think about something. They always say it takes more time, but it takes about 5 or 10 seconds. And I've already thought about it. So I'm just letting you know I'm not doing that. But hey, if you want to continue to follow us and rate us and review the show wherever you're listening at, check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel, and make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you all next week.
Let it go. Let it go.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.